Odds are, especially since you clicked on this video, you are the most feminine man in your entire bloodline. But it's not entirely your fault, bro. Our society, the food that you're eating, and the people that raised you could be just a few reasons as to why you're in the position that you're currently in, where you're confused, anxious, depressed. But believe me, you don't have to stay there. Because not only am I going to tell you the 5 reasons why Christian men are more feminine than ever before, I'm also going to tell you exactly what you need to do to counteract this so that you can become the masculine and Christ-centered man that God has created you to be. Let's get into it. Reason number 1 is you've been lied to. Our society has fed you this lie that being a masculine man is somehow wrong. Think about how the media portrays guys like Andrew Tate or Donald Trump. These men are heavily demonized and scrutinized daily by our entire media. Bro, this past weekend, they literally tried to take Trump's head off. Now, do I agree with everything that they put on social media or everything that they stand for? Absolutely not. But they are some of the most masculine, driven, and ambitious men in our entire society. And a lot of guys, especially the younger guys, look up to these men because they don't have a masculine role model in their life. They're entrepreneurs, they're on purpose, and unlike a lot of the guys in our generation, they actually stand up for what they believe in. But instead of being praised for being masculine men, these guys are called misogynistic pigs, and we're told to avoid them at all costs. Our society does not want you to become masculine. They want you to be a feminine soy boy, stay-at-home dad who takes care of the kids all day and lets the wife go out and work hard and earn money and pay the bills, and he just sits back and relaxes all day. And if they could really have it their way, our government would have every single man go into some clinic and have their own balls chopped off. And the reason for this is because our government and our society as a whole does not want you to become an independent thinker. They don't want you to come to your own conclusions. They want you to sit there, shut up, and obey what the government tells you to do. And the more that you sit there and shut up and you don't think for yourself, the more likely you are to literally just turn on the TV, sit there mindlessly, and consume and believe whatever storyline that they tell you. If you take anything from this video, the one thing that I want you to do is stop allowing our society to tell you that it's not okay to be a man. And this is very serious because if you just sit there and you take this advice, you could literally end up forfeiting your own life. There's some statistics that I'm going to link below from a study that says that the unaliving rate of men among women is 4 times the amount that it is for women. This means that for every 10 women that are unaliving themselves, there are another 40 men that are ending it all. And in 2023 alone, over 50,000 Americans ended their own life. And that was more than any other year on record. And believe me, I used to be in the exact same spot that you may be in right now. I used to think,
I don't need to be a man. I can just, get my little marketing degree and have my girlfriend go into some career where she's really hardworking and focused, and she can make all the money and she can pay the bills. And, I can just kind of sit on the sidelines and allow her to do her thing, and I'll support her. And I'll be the feminine, submissive man, and I'll just take orders from her, and I'll just, make sure the house is clean for the kids. And it'll be such a happy life for me.
And the more and more that I fed into that lie, I became more and more depressed, anxious, and borderline suicidal. I remember the girls that I would date would tell me that I needed to be more emotional and I needed to open up more and tell them how I really felt. And over time, the more that I did this, the more that the women that I would date would lose respect for me. And then they would end up cheating on me and leaving me in the dust. And believe me, you do not want to live your life that way. Reason number 2 is the education system. I want you to take a second and I want you to think back to your time in the education system. Was I primarily being taught by men or was I being taught by women? Odds are you were being taught primarily by women. How many years were you in school for? Was it 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, or was it 14 years? And think about all that time where instead of being raised by a strong, masculine, godly man, you were being raised up by feminine, overweight, feminist women. You can't sit here and tell me that being raised by a woman for over half of your life, for most of you watching this video, would not end up having a negative effect on how you grow up, the way that you view yourself, your beliefs, and what you end up doing for work. It 100% does. Because instead of being educated about things that actually mattered, like how to grow deeper in your relationship with God, how to file your taxes or how to start a business. Your mind was being filled with absolute garbage that you were never even going to use in the first place. How to do geometry, or what that rock is called, and how this rock formation came to be. And not only were you being taught about crap that you were never going to use, every single time that you sat there and you tried to talk to your friend, or you tried to act like a normal kid and roughhouse with your buddies, you'd have some fat feminist woman yell at you and say,
Johnny, shut up! You need to sit down and cross your legs and pay attention.
And whether you're willing to admit this or not, for a 100% fact, this has led to you becoming more feminine than your dad, his dad, and all the generations of men before you. Reason number 3 is the weak men in leadership positions in your church. And there are so many churches in America with this problem. Literally, I just moved to Dallas and we started going to this church where everyone was like,
This is such a good church. There's so many pretty girls and all the guys are studs. You're gonna love it.
and we show up and I'm sitting there listening to some guy who I can already tell is not a masculine man. He's kind of, slender, and he kind of sounds like borderline homosexual, like he's got a little girly voice. I can tell that every message that he's preaching on is very surface level. They're talking about politics and money and how to have more friends, to have godly friendships, and all this just soft stuff. At no point does he call out the congregation for sin or tell them to repent or give really practical advice on how to grow deeper in your relationship with God, or how to become more masculine as a man, or how to become a better, more feminine mother or wife. Like, instead of doing that, we're just talking about all this cookie cutter Christianity crap. And I can promise you that no one in the congregation is learning anything of substance or being challenged in their faith at all. And so I'm sitting there thinking to myself,
Well, the pastor's weak, and I know that leadership flows from above, so that means that the leaders are probably weak, and that also means that the men that go to the church are going to be weak, and then their kids are going to be weak, and that also means that we need to get out of here.
and so we did, and we're currently looking for a better church. If you're sitting in a church and you can tell that the pastor is a weak man, he's scared of offending people, he doesn't stand for anything, and his messages are very watered down, that means that every single person sitting around you is okay with that because they're at the church and they don't see any issue with that at all. And you're anything like me, you're probably not going to fit in well with the people that go to the church or sitting there and listening to those kind of messages. It's going to drive you insane. If you're anything like me and you're trying to become a more masculine and Christ-centered man, you can't be in a church that just tries to tickle your ears and tell you what you want to hear. You need to be around a group of men that are going to build you up, that are going to tell you what you need to hear, and not just what you want to hear. One of my favorite quotes from a guy named Jim Rohn is, "You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." And so if you spend all your time with weak, effeminate, soft Christian men, then odds are you're also going to be a very weak, soft, and effeminate man. If you want to grow and you want to develop yourself and you want to become that masculine, Christ-centered man that God has created you to be, then you need to surround yourself with that group of men. So if the church that you're currently going to is anything like the one that I just described, the first thing that I would do is stop going. Step number 2, I would take out my phone and I would search up Bible church near me or strong masculine church into Google, and I would just start going to different churches in my surrounding area until I found the one that God would want me to go to. So you should be actively looking for a church with a strong pastor who's a masculine man who really preaches on the word. Preferably they just go through a chapter in the Bible or verses in the Bible one by one, and they just break it down every single Sunday. That way you're going to learn a lot about God's word, but they're also going to give you practical advice on how to become a stronger man or a more feminine and godly woman. Reason number 4 is estrogenics. Now, a lot of you watching this video are probably going to have absolutely no idea what that means, but there's a book by a guy named Dr. Anthony J, and it's called How Estrogenics Are Making You Fat, Sick, and Infertile. Estrogenics are man-made additives like plastics, birth control in the water, pesticides, etc. And all those things increase a man's estrogen levels within his body. And if you're wondering, that is a no bueno. That is bad. And the big problem is these plastics and these estrogenics and all this crap is all around us. It's literally inescapable. The plastics that we consume food out of or the bottles of water that we drink water out of are all filled with these microplastics. And so if you have higher levels of estrogen in your body, you could be experiencing the following side effects. Number 1, reproductive issues. You may struggle with reproduction, having sex if you're a married man, or you may be struggling with ED, like struggling to get your little man up. Number 2, you may have breast enlargement. Like you could literally be growing breasts. And I'm not joking. Number 3, you may be seeing a delay in your puberty, meaning your body's natural growth cycle is being slowed down. And I've literally seen this exact thing in my own life. I remember whenever I was in 6th grade and I would look at all the kids that were in 7th and 8th grade and they all looked like grown ass men, like strong. They were all above 6 feet tall. They were jacked, full of testosterone. And I would look at the kids in my grade and myself included, and I'd be like, why don't we look anything like these guys? And the worst part was I would look at kids that were younger than me in like 5th and 4th grade, and they would look like they're freaking toddlers. And I could tell that as the years went younger and younger, the kids just looked less and less mature. And it's 100% because of these estrogenics and the food that we're eating and the water that we're consuming and the stuff that's all around us that's unavoidable. Every single kid in my generation was hitting puberty at a slower rate than people in other generations that came before us. And this is a massive problem that barely anybody's talking about. Now, I'm not just here to scare you. I'm also here to give you some practical advice so that you can make sure that all this crap doesn't affect you as much as it affected me. Now, the simplest thing that you can do to try and avoid this is to eat healthy and also exercise regularly. Now, this is gonna include cardio, maybe walking every single day, but also lifting heavy weights and weight training daily. If I was you and you're not working out already, I would suggest you start going to the gym 3 to 4 times a week. And this is gonna help you to maintain a healthy body weight so that you don't grow massive breasts like some of our fellow men walking around. And you want to maintain a healthy weight because having a higher body weight, getting to the overweight level or borderline obese or becoming obese also increases your estrogen levels. Another thing that you can do is make sure that you get an adequate amount of sleep because this is going to reduce your stress levels. Basically, everybody walking around needs to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep to be able to function at the highest level. The last thing you can do is just make sure that you're hydrated, and instead of just drinking water out of these disgusting plastic water bottles, I would get some kind of filtration system or some way to purify the water that you're drinking so you're not drinking tap water, and make sure that you drink out of a glass cup or a glass bottle so that you're not getting all those microplastics inside of your body every time you drink a glass of water. Now, if you need more help to make sure that you don't turn into a walking soy boy feminist, I went ahead and pinned a link below that's filled with just different action items that you can take to guard yourself against these estrogenics. So if you need extra help, click that link below and save that article. Now, reason number 5 is you had a poor father figure growing up. I had a roommate back whenever we were living in Austin who shared with me that he had a very emasculated and passive father growing up. And because of that, his mom ended up having to step up to the table and become much more dominant, much more domineering. And this created a very unbiblically structured family dynamic between his mom and his dad, where his mom was always disciplining him, staying on him, yelling at him, telling him to shape up and getting in his face whenever he was screwing up. His dad would kind of just sit back passively and allow things to happen. This guy's mom didn't respect his father very much, and she most likely resented him a lot because she was having to step up and serve roles in the marriage and in the relationship as a parent that she should not have had to do. And so as a result of this toxic family environment growing up, my roommate ended up resenting his mom, and worst of all, resenting his dad because his dad was not the strong, masculine, godly man that he needed to be discipled and to become that godly man that my roommate wanted to become. He just had to fend for himself, and he had to learn all this stuff on his own. And so my roommate ended up going through most of his adult life very passively. And he grew up thinking that if he was in a relationship, it was supposed to be exactly like his parents' relationship, where my roommate would just be very passive and allow his girlfriends to take control of the relationship and lead and guide and tell him what to do and tell him where they were going to eat and dress him every single day. And so every girl that he would end up dating didn't really have a lot of respect for him and ultimately would end up cheating on him most of the time. And so my roommate ended up having to get a lot of counsel from masculine, godly men on what he had to do to become a godly man, because he never had a strong father to raise him and to tell him what to do. So it put him at a major disadvantage. And so if you're watching this video and you're in the same position as my roommate, then I want you to know that you are in a worse position than the average man. Just because you're in a worse position, it doesn't mean you're screwed for the rest of your life. So I would highly suggest that you find a strong and masculine, godly man to put yourself on the right path towards becoming that godly man that God has created you to be. I would also suggest, in my unbiased opinion, for you to binge watch every video on this channel because I talk a lot about biblical masculinity, how to become a godly man, how to break free from vices, and how to attract a godly woman. If any of that sounds of interest to you, please feel free to put some headphones on while you work out and binge watch this channel. Now, if you want to ask me some questions one-on-one or you want to connect with me on a one-on-one level, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. I'll go ahead and pin the Instagram username right here so you can see it. But I love connecting with all the boys. So go ahead, give me a follow, and then just shoot me a DM and I'll respond as soon as I can. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I hope that it helps you to become a godly and Christ-centered man. I hope that God blesses you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.